Hi there, you're on Gossip Says channel. Enjoy watching, subscribe and like it. It's growing our community.
Story 1. My Bef, 28M, broke up with me after I, 27F, followed an ex hookup on social media. I, 27F, has only ever had 2 guys I hooked up with in the past and 1 ex. Yes, I have quite a low body count at my age. My current boyfriend, 28M, got to know about this one hookup in my past. This person was my first ever casual partner. Only slept with each other 2-3x in a span of a month and never really saw each other again. Yes, we kept contact on social media. Since then we have had many online convos, catching up like friends, having online conversations, but nothing lengthy. Maybe 2-3x in 3 years. So when I met my boyfriend, 5 to 6 years after that time, for some reason he has very bad blood about this guy, even more than my ex who I was with for over 3 years. And he asked me to block him on IG, so I did. Fast forward a year later, I was talking to a friend who was gonna travel, and I remembered that guy who owns an establishment in the city where my friend was traveling to. In the middle of the F2F conversation I was having, simultaneously I messaged the guy on Facebook to ask about this establishment and let him know I had a close contact going there. We then got to talking. He had asked why he couldn't find me on Instagram. I made an excuse and then unblocked him. I owned up to this mistake. I shouldn't have done that, knowing how my boyfriend felt about him. Even after this, we didn't have any other conversations on Facebook or Instagram. It was a careless and meaningless action I had taken. I am living halfway across the world from this person, and it's been 6+ years since we have seen each other last. My boyfriend then finds out a few months later and gets angry. Understandably, he breaks up with me without giving me a chance to explain and takes it back late. We have been trying to make it work in the past few months, but it keeps coming up, and whenever it does, the whole argument gets revived as if he had just found out again, and the intensity of the emotions is still the same. We have been together for 3 years now, and there have not been any major issues like cheating. He repeatedly tells me things like anyone would have left you. Anyone I tell this situation to would have called me stupid for staying, etc., and myself, who have constantly acknowledged, apologized, and assured him that I'll be more mindful of his emotions and feelings and my actions. I don't appreciate it happening again and again because it makes me feel we aren't moving forward, and my efforts to make things work are worth nothing. I can't help but feel sometimes I am in a toxic relationship. Or is it really me, and I deserve this kind of treatment? Honest opinions, please. Story 2. I, 23F, am being left by a guy, 25M. I adore so much because gossips of me are triggering his past trauma. How do I move on, or better yet, get him back? I, 23F, am currently in the middle of a divorce proceeding with my soon-to-be ex-husband. Our problem was something I don't disclose to other people. He has severe gambling, drinking problem, physically abused me once, and sold all of our assets without me knowing or getting any money from it. But I must admit I had some guys texting me a lot, and I usually replied to the most of it, which caused some trouble. But me and my husband have fixed it. He had investigation launched for any proof of infidelity. He's a police. There is no proof of me cheating, probably because I don't cheat, and we are now friends, still in good term, but fully realize that we cannot be married anymore. I have known this guy, 25M, for 8 months, and we were close friend for the most of it. Last 2 months, we were getting really close with each other. We haven't gotten to the home base. We just kissed, and that's all. This guy was something out of this world. He is extremely kind and grounded. He works hard and very responsible for quite literally anything he's obliged to. Even tried to provide for me. I refused. I'm legally still attached to someone else, and I work so I can manage myself. He is also physically attractive. He has flaws here and there, but really, they just make him even more lovable. He's that kind of person you will feel like I cannot hurt him and will not let anything bad happen to him. All our mutual friends feel the same way about this. The thing about him is that he has a trust issue due to his past relationship. When he told me about this, it was only strengthening my feelings of I will protect you. I literally cut off some people that I know have some other intentions. The ones I have to work with, I limit my contact with them to just professional matter and occasional friendly chat. When my friend groups asked me to a hangout, I invited him along, and frankly, he did the same. I even prayed better, laughed better, managed my time better, simply for the reason of he's a good person. I need to be in the same level of good as he is. I told him to take it slow because I don't want to drag him along with my mess. I was in therapy for my trauma too, due to my abusive father. Along with the gossip about me being a mistress, I am also in the middle of the process of rebuilding my reputation, not to mention my divorce proceeding. The gossip, however, got two wives to lash out on me. The first one was someone whose husband I just met twice in my life. I was cleared easily. The other one, however, the husband was one of the guys who texted me on a daily basis. Granted, I never text him first. We don't talk romantically or sexually. But I do not stop replying. That's a failure on my part. The wife was mad and I explained. It was also cleared. The thing was, I didn't want to hide anything from the guy I adore. So I told him when I was ready, about 2 weeks after the actual confrontation. I thought it was gonna be some light sharing session. But it turned out to be triggering his trust issue, and he asked to leave slowly. In a week, when I felt like he was forcing himself to talk to me for the good measure, I told him that it's okay if he wants to go. We're gonna be just friends like we were before our relationship happened. But to say I was devastated is an understatement. I went through so much lately, and he was the light at the end of the tunnel. It might sound cheesy. I want to try having a proper relationship with him. Why did he leave me like this? He heard those pesky gossip and was okay with it. But all of a sudden he changed his mind. I know he doesn't have any other woman around him, so that isn't the reason. I wonder why. I mean, of course his trauma is valid, but can we try again? I want to beg, but you know, dignity. Note, I'm not a native English speaker, so I'm sorry for any inconvenience. Story 3. My 32M GF 40F is drowning in the daily chores and strictly rejects all my attempts to help her. My GF 40F and I 32M have been living together for 1 year now. We arrived in a new country, and given the rental crisis here, we were very lucky to find a house to rent. The house is old and has needed quite some repairs, some from the owner. Some I had to do myself cause landlords can be very lazy, and has a big garden that had been neglected by the previous tenant. The garden was also a lot of work, but I love to do that on the weekends, so I would never complain about that. I am currently working full-time, and GF stays at home and considers taking on a part-time work in the near future in order to still have enough time to take care of the house chores. Now this is where I need to hear other people's opinion. The house is, as I said, old, but pretty small with a big garden. We have 1 cat and 1 large dog. We do not have any kids. I go to work at 6 in the morning and come back at 5 in the afternoon 5 days a week. On the weekends and week evenings, I do repairs in the house, the garden, clean up after the dog and the cat, work on the old car, and all traditionally male chores. I don't believe in this label, but it's for the sake of the reader's understanding. Whereas GF takes care of cooking my lunchbox and dinner, laundry, tidying, and cleaning the house, inside only. She believes these are a woman's job. Again, I don't, and feels fulfillment in feeding me and providing me with a clean and comfortable environment. Now the thing is, I love living in a house with a garden and in contact with nature. I get depressed real quick in an apartment as I feel there is little to do, and I feel caged in a box. On the other hand, my GF has been raised in a box. From her words, she regrets she was extremely sheltered as a kid and lived most of her life in tiny studios or rented rooms, with a maid taking care of most of the chores. It is worth noting she comes from a family that would soak and hand wash clothes 3 times before putting them in the washing machine, only then considering to wear said clothes. So yes, we have our differences. She was naturally more inclined for us to get a small apartment, and I wanted a small house with a garden. When we found the house we are in today, we both agreed that there would be more work than in an apartment, but were up with that, and she was curious to try that kind of life. Few months later, and she regularly expresses a lot of discomfort, saying that this house is an enormous amount of work and it never stops. I have been insisting to help her vacuum, mop, take care of the laundry, of the dishes. She washes then thoroughly before putting them in the dishwasher. and other chores on weekends or on evenings after my work shift. But she is very clear I will not do any of that because I would not do it right. I even proposed to hire a maid on some days. It would be useless, I would clean after her cause she won't do a good job. Or even a Roomba. My friend told me they are useless. She has been rejecting every one of my suggestions to help, and I mean every suggestion. And truthfully, I don't understand why these chores take her so much time and energy. I have been single and taking care of a similar place, and all it took me was a couple hours a day to get everything done. So now I have accepted that and witness her working, very inefficiently in my opinion, and overdoing things, all day from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m., and be grumpy most of the evenings. She tries not to complain, but when I engage in discussion, she usually ends up saying that we live in a shabby house that requires honestly and work. My brother has visited me recently, and although he is very much a city guy who would not like to have animals or a big garden, he did say that the house did not look that hard to maintain, and that my GF must feel bored. He was very surprised when I told him she can barely keep up with the normal chores and is overwhelmed. I don't even know where I want to go with that story, but I guess some stranger's opinion would be a good way for me to keep a neutral eye on the issue at hand. Maybe I am doing something wrong. I make sure to thank her for her efforts on a daily basis and make her contribution feel valued with regular flowers and chocolates or her favorite treats, which she absolutely loves every time and usually feels a bit better as a result. I may have omitted some info, obviously please ask away. I would love to clarify any details. Please note this depicts a very grumpy image of my GF, but that is only on the issue at hand. I am also occasionally grumpy back from work because I feel disrespected in my current job that I strongly dislike. And she is otherwise a very positive person that believes anything you do in life is a consequence of your choice. And if you want to change, then you should take the matter in hand and change things yourself. Story 4. I 35F and having serious doubts about marrying my 35M fiancé. The wedding is in 3 months. Should I break the engagement or postpone the wedding? My fiancé and I have our wedding in 3 months. I am starting to have serious doubts if our marriage will be successful. We dated for 1.3 years, did some long distance and engaged for 10 months. I recently moved from Oregon. He lived with me couple weeks every 2 months and fly off to Virginia 5 months ago, and I started to notice changes in his behavior. We are both in high-powered fields with demanding schedules. He's in software, I'm in healthcare. He upholds values where he is to be seen as the man of the house, the provider, the primary decision maker, and the wife is to listen and support his work. In our fights, he said he does not respect or care about my work. His work comes before mine, and wants me to support his work and his vision. I need to ask him outside of the fight if he truly believes in this power dynamic, or he said this in the heat of the argument. I am currently applying for jobs. He gives me a list of things I should do, and if I have a problem with it, he gets very frustrated, gives his reasoning, disregards mine, and ultimately makes the decision for the both of us. He also said things like if I don't want to listen to him because he is the man, I should move back to Oregon. Over time, I've noticed a pattern in arguments where he assumes the worst scenario, jumps to conclusions and engages in yelling, making excessive hand gestures, cuts me off, doesn't listen to me, throws his belongings on the floor, and expects a quick apology. He doesn't listen to my side of the argument and states I am disrespecting his work and need for 8 hours of sleep, even on the weekends. To which I say, there is never a time to talk through things or have arguments. Hours go by in our fights until I say sorry, to which he does not believe my apology and fights even more. He also started to tell me what type of clothes to wear, to not be on my laptop an hour before bedtime, to diet 5 days of the week, no fast food or even snacks, and exercise 4 times a week, which these things he also does. My concern is he is bringing these new restrictions after I moved here, and I am afraid of what more he will add 5 years later after we are married. He told me when I was living in Oregon that he wants his partner to maintain a healthy diet and exercise, but since the move, this frequency is new and now set as a non-negotiable. Recently, I asked when I start my job, I will need to bring my work home on occasion to finish tasks. He put a boundary stating I can only do this 1-2x a week for 2 hours in the PM and wake up at 4 or 5 a.m. to work from home, and no more because it will disrupt family time. I was so disappointed that he did not want to compromise and would rather just have me figure out my job constraints instead of coming up with alternatives. I said I can't abide by this and was ready to break this engagement. It was only then that he agreed to remove the time restriction and would work on his flaws. I feel very devalued, mistreated, and disrespected in these fights that are also increasing in frequency. I am losing confidence that this marriage will work for us, especially if we have a child and the increasing responsibilities this will bring. I told him I left my family, friends, job behind to move here, and this was a sacrifice I made. He said he doesn't see my uprooting as a sacrifice, as I could easily pack up and go home. The true sacrifice would be when I have a hop here, married him, and have had a kid. He sees my sacrifice as his equivalent with spending $35K on the ring. He was divorced before and sought counseling before, his main reason being issues with relocating to a new city his then ex-wife disagreed to. But if they did counseling, I worry if the reasons he sought counseling are for the issues listed above in our current relationship. Another issue here is that I stated my needs and arguments. He did not follow through. But this was the first time I communicated with him in writing and verbally after the fight, and he is now making changes to his behavior. Signed up for counseling and reading articles on controlling behavior, temper, etc. He asked me to give him 1 month and after, for me to decide whether to continue with the wedding. He said he didn't want to lose me, and he will fight for this to work. The invites are on hold. I don't know what I should do. I don't trust that he will uphold these changes after the wedding. I am uncertain if the patterns of control and anger will return. I did not talk to my family as he asked me not to. He has another non-negotiable where he wants to try for a child no later than May to prevent risk of Down syndrome/miscarriages, and his stance is firm. Any advice will be helpful. Thanks. Redeeming qualities: he says he loves me. He spent $35K on the engagement ring that he financially struggled to pay off. And he paid this off. He put in $40 towards wedding expenses, which he says is the bride's family's responsibility, but is willing to help out. He takes me to the clinic. When I'm sick, he lets me choose where to go on date nights. He is flexible with cuisines when eating out, takes trash out / carries heavy objects and groceries, cleans bathroom, toilet, does dishes, makes long-term plans for an apartment, concerts, games, etc. He accepted I can live in any apartment and in any city as long as it's an hour from the coast.